guys, welcome back to the Team Glow podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. My name is Sarah Parker. If I haven't gotten the opportunity to meet you, it's an incredible opportunity for me to be here, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this incredible person that I brought with me speak about the topic that we have tonight. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about community, change, and what it looks like to transition in seasons. And so as we get started, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about Kelsey. Her name's Kelsey Payton, by the way. I am super excited that she's here. We've known each other for probably 7 years at this point.
32 years. Minimum.
Yes, from birth. I actually was not born 32 years ago. So
Please continue.
So about 7 years ago, I walk into this life group. We're sitting down. At the end of it, I was like, I have to meet this girl. And I literally call everyone girl, even if it's like a 60-year-old woman. She's not 60, but if she was, I would still be calling her girl. Exactly. And so afterwards, I was like, I got to meet her. There's something that I just like felt connected to her. And so I go up to her, and the first thing she says before being like, hi, hey, how are you? It was, you have leadership on your life. And so at that point, I will never forget it because it was just so impactful for me. Because in that season, I was kind of hiding from my leadership. I was in a place where I was in a season where I wasn't ready to step into something like that. I had come from a season of leading, and I was just like, I don't need this right now. And so that kind of gives us a little bit of a transition into the conversation I want to have with you. But before that, is there anything else you wanted to share about who you are? I know you have a family, and when I met you, you didn't have a whole family and all of that.
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey Payton, and I'm with Healing Waters Outreach Center, and I am married almost 9 years. I think that's correct. I hope I don't get in trouble. I hope I don't get that wrong. I have 2 kids, a teenage daughter and a toddler son, and a beautiful fur baby named Daisy. That is my shadow and the love of my life.
The true love.
The true love of my life.
Well, again, I'm super thankful that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
I first wanted to start by just saying, what are you passionate and excited about right now?
So right now, I'm really loving community care and just staying aware of people's vulnerabilities and choosing to jump in and meet those vulnerabilities, meet them where they are. So like, I loved getting to hear your perspective of how we met, because I've never heard that.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
I never really, we don't often hear other people's perceptions of us, but I do remember, like, when you're studying for a test and you're looking on a page and there's like a highlighted portion, like I remember it felt like in the room you were highlighted. So anyway, that's just a sidebar, but I feel like we have opportunities throughout our lives, regardless of which background we come from, where people are put in front of us and there's like a highlight. There's something about them that we can connect to, that we can help them with, or that we can support or validate, at least validate. And so that's something that I'm passionate about right now. I'm doing that through Healing Waters Outreach Center. We feed 300 to 400 families every Sunday. And we do like a drive-through grocery distribution, being able to do that, getting to serve alongside people who are entering parole. So they're in a reentry program coming out of prison, have a lot of hopes and dreams. So we get to serve alongside them to meet the needs of the community. And to me, that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's everybody's various walks of life coming together to just be a collective support.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know that that's not what you've always been doing. So as you are in this place where you're so passionate, I can feel it. Like, how has it been as you've transitioned into doing this? Because I know you were in a different job, you had a different passion at one point, and things I like to see it kind of like when you're in one season and it's time for the next one, but not everyone always sees the whole picture.
Right. Yeah.
And so, how was that transition for you?
So I think we live in a binary culture where it's like either this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just as a society, we struggle with it has to be one of two options. I either have to do this or do this. And it's especially when, we kind of grow up in a fairy tale mindset of like, I can't wait till I grow up and then I'm going to do this. And then that's like where that dream, ends in our minds. Like, we're like, we don't ever see it turning into something else. And so I think just as a society, it's harder for us to go, oh, maybe there's a secret third option. Like,
Mm.
it's not that I have to do this or this. I could become the first person to try this other thing.
Yeah.
This other thing might work out. So to give it a little context for viewers, listeners, whoever,
Yeah.
whatever media you're using right now to participate, but I was on staff at a church for 9 years, and I did administration, I did event planning, I did counseling, I did small groups, I did leadership training, curriculum writing, various things with inside of it, which did kind of prepare me like be ready for something new. But I never pictured that I would work outside of a church environment ever. I never pictured that.
Yeah.
So in my brain, it was church environment or bust. That was it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, when the pandemic hit is when I started to feel the season change.
Yeah.
And trees don't get mad at the weather for their leaves falling off.
Mm.
They just do it. They just participate. It's a dance. It's trees and the weather agreeing this is what we do during the season together. And then when the season is done, then the weather changes and the trees gets its leaves back, or it starts to grow fruit, or the fruit is ready to be picked at the time, ready for harvest. So, but I don't think we learn enough from nature in that aspect. I think in a hustle culture where it's constantly go 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 do, we fail to recognize the natural ebb and flow of what fits in our life and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, I really started to notice the prayer requests that were coming in were for tangible needs. And so then my passion shifted from spiritual growth to meeting tangible needs, essentially. So, so now that I have spent this time in a spiritual atmosphere, how do I shift to meeting tangible needs? Um, and you have to have so much grace with yourself. I was so mad. I was like, no, I can't change. I hate change. I don't want to change. I just learned how to do this. Like,
And I'm really good at it.
and I'm good at it. And people are benefiting from it.
Right.
And it pleases the Lord. And so we fear what we don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
We fear the unknown. And really, it was beneficial to me to understand the role of a pioneer.
Mm.
So, a pioneer, their entire job is before a battle or whatever. I'm going to botch this for like history buffs. I apologize in advance for how basic white girl definition this is going to be.
If you need like the expert, go to Google.
Go to something else.
Or like a history book.
Or like pause and just wiki it or something. But essentially, a pioneer, their job is to go scope out uncharted territory and learn it. That's their job, is to learn this new place that nobody's ever been, to chart it out and to bring it back to people and say, here's what it looks like to go where I've been.
Mm.
And they don't necessarily participate in the battle on their first go around, but they're the ones that go in and they go, oh, this is new. Oh, this is a berry that we shouldn't eat because it kills us. This is a berry that is really delicious in pie, so we can eat this one, things like that. And so it's like I was able to talk. And if I, first of all, I think every human being on the planet needs a therapist. If you don't have a therapist, highly recommend getting one. Highly
It's
recommend.
high on the list.
Yes, because they help you in seasons of transition as well, and help you
Yeah.
realize things about yourself that make you go, oh, I am actually equipped for this.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was having grace for myself to go, okay, you know what? Whatever I'm going into, I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's the job of the pioneer, is to
Mm.
go in, chart it out, bring it back, and say, okay, this is how it's done. This is how we can move forward in this direction. And I say that not necessarily to teach other people how to do it, in as much as to give confidence to my younger self,
Mm.
that, hey, I've got you. The dreams that you've had since you were a little girl, they're not dead. They're just further ahead. And I
That's
went
so good.
ahead and I mapped it out. Here's what it looks like. Let's go together.
We all have a Christopher Columbus in there going
Yes.
on.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a Christianer, but
And we've all we if you're an adult now, then at some point you were a child.
Yeah.
And that child is still there.
Mm.
And we're the only ones that have access to that child to meet the hopes and the needs and the dreams and the goals of that child. And I think that's what gave me the confidence I needed to move into a new season without fear.
Yeah, that's huge because I think that's what trips me up in seasons of when I before we started recording this podcast, I thought it was so funny that we have this little be brave right here. And I just feel like that is what I was hearing from you, is all of these things that are helping you to take that first step and truly be brave, mm-hmm. in spite of what could be fear, because mm-hmm. you're building something you don't know what it looks like. Mm-hmm.
And I heard something recently where it was like 80% of your thoughts, like if you were to categorize your thoughts throughout the day as positive or negative, 80% of our thoughts are negative. Like instantly, just because our bodies are wired for survival.
Yeah.
So it's the brain is constantly like, what's a threat? How do I stay alive in the midst of it? Those types of things. Like, it's just science. We're wired that way. But it's something that my therapist said is, so since our nature is to go, okay, well, what if it doesn't work? That's when we get to bring our inner self and say, well, what if it does?
Yeah, what if it does? I heard at an event one time, they said negativity is natural, positivity is on purpose.
So good.
And it's literally stuck with me since I heard it the first time, so because we have to choose on purpose to pour positivity into those dreams, into our inner child self, to be like, we can do this.
Yeah.
You got this, girl.
And to not making light of positivity either. Like,
right.
Because I know from experience that if you are born with less serotonin than other people, you're going to have a difficult time with positivity.
Yeah.
And you're going to require additional support.
Yeah.
And that is not bad.
Right.
The younger version of you, whoever is listening to this or watching this, and you're thinking, that's me, I was just born with a lower level of that, and I need additional support. I'm here to tell you that the younger you is worth that. You are worth that additional support. You are worth that positivity. And positivity is not going to miss you just because you weren't born as lucky as somebody else who had those chemicals. It is for you, that if you made it this far, you can make it further.
Yeah, that's so good. I wanted to ask you, like, as you're transitioning into this incredible space, being a pioneer, stepping into something completely new that you have no idea what it's going to look like yet. Now you have a little bit more of an idea. But when you were in that place, what did the support from your family look like? What was their reaction to, I'm going to do this, and I know that it's what I'm supposed to be doing, and we're going to do this?
So like my immediate, like my...
Or just like your close community, because the people that at that time were supporting you.
Yeah. They were like, do it, whatever. you're amazing. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so funny.
That's awesome.
Like, the picture that I get is like my dad, what he told me was, baby girl, I gave you the crayons and I gave you the coloring book. Whatever you color is good with me, and I'll put it on my fridge.
That's
And I was
awesome.
like, oh, yes.
That's like the sweetest thing I've
That's the
ever
support
heard.
that I need. Well,
Yeah.
because also, like, whenever you transition is when you realize which people were seasonal and which ones were evergreen. So there are some that are supposed to be there for your entire life, if there are any. Like,
Yeah.
like if you have one of those, like, you are a blessed individual. But most people are seasonal friends,
Yeah.
or seasonal support. That is not a bad thing.
100%. I can speak to that all day because I've had people. What I've learned is that there are people in your life who are there for a purpose,
Yeah.
for a length of time that you need.
Yeah.
They're going to come in, just like me and you. I don't talk to Kelsey every day. I haven't seen Kelsey in
Right.
how long, but we picked up so quickly because I care and I love and I want the best for you, but I don't have time and you don't have time for us to be on the phone for
And
3 hours every day.
our relationship is not contingent and so frail that it requires to be there in every season.
Yeah.
You know, and it requires for us to, you know, be active and see each other every single day. Like, there anyway. So, but I think one of the harder things for me was grieving some of the relationships that I thought were evergreen, that were actually seasonal. And it's not dumb to grieve that. Like, it's not dumb to be sad, like when somebody is like, hey, good for you, but that doesn't make sense for me. Bye.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to be sad. That is sad. But then we can transition, you know, grieving, you know, mourning to dancing. We can transition our grief and say, thank you for what you were to me, and the existence that you offer on this planet. Because whether they're with me or not, they are a blessing to someone.
Yeah.
And so thank you for being a blessing in my life. And I thank God that you're continuing to be a blessing in someone else's life.
Yeah. So I would love to just touch on that a little bit more because I know for me personally, I used to be a hold on to these people as long as you can. Don't let them go because there's going to be a change and then they're going to be gone. And for great reasons sometimes.
Yeah.
But what are some ways that you really found that helped you through that grieving process? Because I think that, you know, there's still some people in my life that I see photos of us together and it literally warms my heart so much. But there's also a little part of me that's like, I miss them. And like, it's just not our time and that's okay.
Yeah.
But how was that grieving process for you?
So I think some of the things that got me through that is trying to stay rooted in thankfulness. And also, I'm not sure what belief system other people have, but I am a firm believer that every human that I encounter is made in the image of the God that I worship. And so thanking, you know, being rooted in thankfulness, in having the presence of God with me at that time, and knowing that I'm going to meet more people who were created in his image again, and I'm going to be spending forever with them. So I truly believe that, you know, that I don't need to grieve as someone who has no hope, but I will grieve as someone who knows that, hey, when you entered my life, that was the beginning of a forever. Yeah. Regardless of how much I get to see you. Yeah. And so that really helped me. Also, therapy.
I don't know if you noticed, but big fan of therapy over here.
It's actually, I got a tattoo right here. Everybody should be in therapy. Big fan of therapy. Anyway, I digress.
Well, I'm going to drink this for a second.
Take a drink. Tea break.
Okay. So, going back in your story a little bit, I would love to hear about the foster process for you
Oh,
and Jazz and
ooh,
everything, because that was a big transition in your life as well.
true.
So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, because I know that's a huge thing, and it's something that for me, I haven't personally fostered or done that whole process, but a good friend of mine has also gone through that process, and I've gotten to see what it's done for her. And so
Mhm.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about what
Yeah,
that looked like for
so
you.
my husband and I, we were married for a year when we went to a wedding. And there was this scrawny little, gorgeous little 9-year-old girl just running around. We didn't know who she was, but she was the life of the party. And we kind of asked for her story, and we learned that she was in foster care. Parental rights were terminated, and she was up for adoption. And that's when my husband and I said, it was actually him because I'm scared to death of everything. So,
That change thing
yeah,
again.
the change, you remember? Yeah, so he said, so now I think I know why we fell in love with her, because either we have to help find her a family or we are that family, and we have to consider both of those things. And that made me so mad because I was like, man, now it's real. Like now we have to actually think about it.
Yeah.
And so our process is very different from a regular foster process, or even just a regular adoption process, because we knew the girl that she was living with, and the girl that she was living with was like, look, I am not a good person. It's just a matter of time before something bad happens to me.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I want you guys to do this. And so we were able to do a quick, we met her in September. We got foster licensed in November, moved into a new place in December, and then she came to live with us in February. And so we fostered her from February to November, where the judge in November just said, do you want to do the adoption over Skype? That I was like, what?
Skype?
This was like pre-COVID, so that
Okay.
it's like
So it was not a thing.
not normal. And we were like, what? And so we did. We on November 11th, we adopted Jasmine via Skype in our living room with our best friends and family. And when we hung up that call, we had burgers and hot dogs. And it was just so crazy. And we had only been married for 1 year. So we were already in a brand new transition of trying to learn each other. And
Mm.
then you throw in a 9-year-old with significant trauma
Mm.
from a different state. And it's just, you wouldn't be able to write the story. If you're
Yeah.
able to just sit down and try to guess and write what happened, you would never guess what happened. But yeah, so our through that time, there were not a lot of people who understood adoption, that understood fostering, or even just being trauma informed at minimum.
Yeah.
And so we had to start surrounding ourselves with more people who were trauma informed. Um, and we had to seek out our own support, because apparently that doesn't just like fall from
Magically
the
come.
sky. Yeah, like when you start a new adventure, they're not like, here's your support team. Like,
People are just knocking at your door. Hey,
yeah,
I'm here to help.
exactly. You wake up, they're like angels, like I'm here for you. But yeah, so we had to seek out our support. And so like if some people ask me like, what's fostering like what's it like, I don't know actually, because our story is very strange, very
Yeah.
particular.
Which, I mean, I feel like that's everyone's story, right?
True.
But as you're building that support system, where did you start? Like, what did, like, who did you reach out to be like, hey, I, I don't know what to do with my hands
Yeah,
right now?
I don't know what I'm doing. Essentially, yeah, I went online. Yeah, so
Okay.
I looked first on various foster and adoptive support groups, and I found other moms who were experiencing the same parenting that I was
Mm.
experiencing. And to just find someone who has gone through what you're going through, it's all the support in the world. Like that means the world to me, to know that somebody has been there.
Yeah.
Like that's why pioneering is so important to me, because every time I'm going through something hard and I encounter someone who has been there before, I feel immediate relief. Because I'm like, oh, look, they're still alive,
Yeah.
like, hey, they made it. So there's hope for me,
Yeah.
So I looked online, and the foster and adoptive agency that we used, the calls, they hooked us up with other families that had adopted as well.
It's amazing. Um, I think it's so important to, in times of change, find those people that
Right.
can relate to what you're going through.
Right.
Because I've gone through many seasons of, this is so not what I thought I would be doing.
Right. Yeah. Because I was like, what was I, like 26 or 26? My husband, he's going to go back and watch this, be like, you have no idea how old you are. But
who does?
Yeah. Right. I'm always 29.
That's the clip.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one we use. But I mean, I was in my 20s, and we had only been married for a year. None of our friends had kids, and we didn't have any biological kids. And all of a sudden, boom, we have a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, we lost everybody. Like,
Yeah.
our friends couldn't relate to us anymore, because we were like, hey, so what time does this end? We got to wrap it up because we've got bedtime. We've got to do the nighttime routine. It helps with grounding exercises. And they're like, what are you talking about? So yeah, it sucked. And you don't realize that you have to build your support team until you realize that you don't have any.
Yeah.
And that's never a pleasant experience, to look around and see that nobody's there
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean they're there from a distance, whoa, that's really hard. Good for you.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm like, I feel like I was a little bit one of those people, because it's like, on the other side, you're like, I think that's incredible. What do I do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am here for whatever you need. What is it? I don't know. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know. What is it? I don't know.
Like, do I show up with food? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? We never know. We're making it up as we go.
Literally, as I've gotten older, everyone's making it up.
Totally.
And we're just leaning on each other. I think it goes back to that, what you said earlier. It's knowing that somebody else has been through it.
Yes.
And that's why I love that we keep bringing up pioneering, because to me, that's what I'm going to take away from this. I hope that you guys are taking that away too, because pioneering and taking a step to be brave and walk into that change and transitional seasons, because they're going to come in life.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of life.
Totally.
And if we learn anything from the weather, right? And we hear all the time, or at least I feel like I hear all the time, seasons. But it truly is like moments where there's change happening. Yeah. And if we choose to just say, I don't know, but it's going to be great.
Yes. And you have to give margin and grace for your instinctual responses. So your instinctual responses are not who you are. Your choices are who you are. Your decisions are who you are. So don't be like that first reaction that you have to something of fear or anxiety or suspense or whatever it is. Don't go, oh man, that must mean I'm a fearful person. Just recognize that your mind's job, like your brain, its sole job is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Like, its job is not to keep you happy. It's to keep you alive. So if you're experiencing a transition and your body is like, oh no, just thank your brain for a second. Just go, hey, thank you, brain, for realizing that this is not necessarily the safest scenario I've been in.
Yeah.
But I've got it from here. I'll take it from here. Thank you for doing your job. Please decrease your cortisol levels. I would like to continue in peace now, and I will make a choice to figure this out, regardless of how I feel. And I had to get support for how I felt in my instinctual responses so that my true self could come out. Like, we don't need to be ashamed of antidepressants. We don't need to be ashamed of therapy or support groups or saying no to substances. Like, we don't need to.
And accountability. Honestly.
Yes.
I think that's so good. When it comes to that, like, for me, when I'm experiencing, like, I'm a reactor.
Oh yeah.
And so I've learned over time that my natural, like, first reaction is not me.
Mm-hmm.
It's me responding from the way that I've experienced life before
Absolutely.
and how I'm going to just, and then I take a second and I'm like, why did I just feel like I needed to go?
Good.
And then I take that time and then I'm like, this is how I actually
So good.
feel and
Most people don't.
actually um, want to communicate with this person.
Yeah.
And I've failed a lot at that. But thankfully, not only do I have grace for myself, but I have some really great people in my life who've had grace for me when my reaction goes all the way over, you know?
Yes.
And you're like, that is truly not what I meant.
Yes.
But some people don't know when you're in the middle of a reaction that you're just reacting.
Yeah. So there's a study that says that 1 out of every 3 Americans has significant trauma. So not just like trauma, like daily trauma, things that make you scared, but significant life altering trauma. 1 out of every 3 people.
Wow.
So that means that at some point in their life, in their reactions to things, their instincts are going to kick in. But don't take that for face, like don't take that for what you see it as.
Yeah.
Understand that people go through stuff that make their instincts try to protect them.
Yeah.
And when we can have grace for ourselves when we do that, then we'll have that muscle memory to have grace for other people when they're doing that as well. And so that's how not only can we help ourselves through transition, but also be able to support other people in their transition. Because I know people saw me flailing, like, hey, why is she crying in her car again? Like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I literally heard a child one time walking by saying, Mama, why is she eating ice cream in her car by herself? I was like, listen.
You'll know one day, sir.
Listen, that is the peak of life, okay? Leave me alone.
You're alone in your car? Amazing.
Absolutely. So I'm sure there are people that saw me in that transition and saw my instincts of either like sadness, anger, fear, or whatever. And a lot of those people bowed out. Yeah. They left. But my evergreens didn't.
Yeah.
They stayed. They know. They're trauma informed.
Yeah.
They understand that in seasons of transition, your instinctual reaction is not who you are. Give it a minute and nurture that side of yourself.
I think that's so, I'm going to end it there on that note. Like, nurture yourself. That's so good.
Yeah.
And if you take anything from this, be a pioneer in your change and transitional seasons. Step in like a pioneer. Thank you guys so much for listening to us talk. We literally could talk for 3 more hours. I don't think you understand that if I didn't stop us now, we would be here talking for another 3 hours. But make sure that you take the time to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Where you're listening to us, drop a review, share this with your friends. We are so excited to support you in any way that we can. Thank you so much for listening.